I mean, I'm pulling for a Mets World Series soon so that we can look back and be like, well, they signed Trevor May that first time, and a few years later they won this World Series, so it worked out. Like instead of being like we haven't gotten one and they signed Trevor May first, like that's kind of what the narrative is now. I get it. I'm a reliever, whatever. But yeah, I'm with you guys. Let's go.
Your name just appears on a graphic during a broadcast of like Steve Cohen timeline of moves, and you are right at the top there, and it goes
World
all the way.
Series soon, so I'm close.
Yes,
I'm that first domino that fell.
Welcome to the Mets Pod, presented by Tri-State Cadillac. Elevate your style in a Cadillac. Go from bold to bolder in an SUV. From inspiring to awe-inspiring in a sedan. Visit your Tri-State Cadillac dealer today. Here's your reminder to subscribe to the show at Apple Podcast, Spotify, SNY's YouTube channel, or wherever you get your shows. I'm your host, Connor Rogers, joined as always by my co-host, Joe DeMayo, and a very special guest in Trevor May. First up, congratulations on the retirement announcement. We are psyched to hear about what you're going to be doing next, even though we know some of it. But before we get there, Trevor, we're wondering why now? You just came off of a dominant second half of 2023, and every single offseason relievers are in high demand.
Yeah, I'll be honest, it's got very little to do with market forces or the ability to get another job. I think that I could do it. I think I have physically, easily a couple years left in the body, but that would mean that there would be nothing left in the body. And I like having a little bit of energy to do things that I enjoy. So there's that. And then a lot of the success, I knew that was going to be a question that I get quite a bit because I arguably maybe ended with my best run I've ever had in my whole career. But I can't stress enough how much that success was affected by the idea that I was going to retire. So I think that seeing a light at the end of the tunnel and then knowing how much you haven't left in the tank and you really truly want to end it or empty it out. I think that I saw a quote from David Ortiz when he retired. Same thing. I was like, you're retiring, you hit like 320. And he's like, I hit 320 because I was retiring. Like I knew how how much energy I was going to have left, and I just wanted to really enjoy it and leave it all out there. And then it's one of those things where you look back and you're like, why didn't I just do that the whole time? But that's just not. It's just not as easy as it seems. So there's a lot of that, and there's family really factored in the decision. I enjoy being. I have, like you said, I have all those other interests and. A lot of them are I'm just interested to see what I can do with a little bit of youth left in those areas too, because I have a spark of passion for them, and I just want to see how good I can be at other things. Does that make sense?
So you talked about some other interests. Tell us a bit about what's next, and was it a little easier to walk away from the game because of everything you have going on with your Twitch channel and YouTube and maybe some other ventures in the baseball media space?
Yes. Having another thing to transition into is massive. I think that I've been thinking a lot about not only me, but why. I asked the question why a lot. Why a lot of players feel the way that they feel about what careers are supposed to be. It's like a unanimous thing you're told when you're. Right when you get in, when you're 18, they're just like, you play as long as your body will hold up because it's a unique experience. Now, that's not untrue. That makes a lot of sense, but that's where it comes from, the opportunity of the thing, not you have to. So I think that there's sometimes some guys hold on because they don't know what to do after. Some guys hold on because it's a very big part of their identity, which. Honestly, even me I built another identity and other things on purpose for a very long time. And even me, it was very, very I could have announced the first day of the offseason, and I was putting it off because it's scary. Even me. And I was really excited to do it. And it's a little bit of a scary thing. So that's a lot of it of a scary thing because it's what I've known as an adult. I became an adult at 18, then I was a professional baseball player, and that's all I've done since then. So having those other things and a baseline and having had some success in them as well is definitely like the majority of feeling better about it. And in that vein, I have promised my agent and my wife, the two people that are very, very intimate with how my brain can spin, and how excited I can get about everything that I'm doing. They're like, promise me that you will just take it slow for like first month. So I am fulfilling that promise as best I can and letting things shake out a little bit. But I'm already gonna tell that
you have that date circled. You have that date circled when a month expires.
I'm starting to spin again. The list is getting long, but hopefully, I'm trying to just follow like which thing do I wake up every morning want to do the most, and so like what you guys are doing here, podcasting is something that I really enjoy doing. I like talking about the game a lot. Everyone's like, "Are you gonna just never watch baseball again?" I'm like, I'm probably gonna watch way more baseball now, because I like giving the insight and just like this is what could possibly be going through his head, because that's the way I was when I played. I like tried to analyze everything I saw, and that just kind of translates into media. So it's a podcast, it's possibly radio. I've been asked about commentating. Obviously, those jobs are hard to come by, but schedules and stuff. But I also love the analytics side of the game and like actually working with players. So there's something there possibly. I love video games still, and that's just a really fun hobby that it's always going to be there. And so the Twitch stream is going to be in there. I've possibly might design and syndicate my own show, like in a commentary, like TV style, and do that on YouTube. I also want to do all my YouTube channel stuff that I've been doing, like the reaction stuff and the breakdown stuff and all the stuff that I've been doing for the last few years, the vlogs. I don't know which one of those things is going to take over most of the time, but we'll see. And then there's like a film side of me too that like I've been writing a screenplay about baseball. Like I don't know if that's something I want to do. That's a whole thing. So
do it all, man. Do it all.
Cameras, photography. I'm into all that stuff. I'm learning it all. And then now I have a 3D printer and I got people. I had my retirement party the other day and they're just like, how about you? How about this? How about this? I'm like, oh, I like that and that. And I'm like, stop giving me more stuff. My wife literally had to be like, hey, get away. Get away. He's mine for a little bit. Please stop. So yeah, I know that was long, but there's a lot. There's a lot.
No, it's awesome. And for a lot of that stuff, I'm sure many of our Mets-centric audience know this, but I am Trevor May on Twitch, YouTube, of course, for most of that stuff. And, before we get into some really random fun things, Trevor, I want to ask you this. Like you said it, you became an adult at 18 and you're like, I'm a professional baseball player. That's what I know, which being an athlete is such a regimented schedule. Now that you could really do whatever you want, but you have so many other interests. Do you almost feel busier in a way? Because it's like you could do something different every single day of the week, every single hour. But when you're a baseball player, it's wake up, breakfast, workout, and it's so routine. Doesn't it feel like you could be even busier after baseball now?
Yes. That's going to be the next, I think the biggest hurdle for me to jump over. And to be honest, my off seasons the entire time have been more busier than the season. They always have been. It's something that I'm actually trying to rest a little bit more on purpose. But yeah, like learning what schedule looks like, because, my wife doesn't really have a job right now either. So we're both in the house every day and there's a lot of freedom in that. But at the same time, you're like, sometimes you like someone else to make the schedule for you so you don't have to do it all the time. So that's what we're now working on, is figuring out what that looks like. Like, are we going, like, what are weekdays, business days? Are we going to go with everybody else? Because I just got thrown into another situation where I still don't know what day of the week it is a lot of time. And the only time I knew when it was during the baseball season is whether or not we had a day game or not. So I'm like, oh, it's a day game. It must be in the middle of the week or Sunday. Like that's how we knew. So it's the same thing. So now I have to be very conscious about how I schedule my time, and calendar is my best friend. But yes, busyness is something that I enjoy up to a point. And my biggest problem is like, I have that whole day. I've been just diving into things left, right, and center. Then it's like 5:30, and then shutting it off when you're in your home still is hard. So I'm gonna try to find ways to like go be in another place when I'm doing stuff, like go to a coffee shop and write, so that there's a natural like leaving that place. So now I'm not thinking about the thing I was thinking about there. That's a real thing, and I'm realizing that when you don't separate those areas in your home, like it's really hard to turn your brain off. So turning my brain off is the biggest thing, but it's a good problem to have, I feel like.
Well, one of those ventures is esports, and anyone that knows you knows that you know video games. So we're gonna put you on the spot here.
Yep.
Top 5 video games, but all time, any system, anything goes.
Ooh, okay. I love this question. So I have a good combination of super nerd games and sports games. I grew up on MVP Baseball 05.
The
Was a big
best.
one.
Yes.
Yes,
Probably
sir.
the best console baseball game, in my opinion. As a younger kid than that for PC, backyard baseball. It was just the Sandlot experience into a game, and also you just had to click, which was easy, and I like that. It's really hard to not win by 30. So winning every time was fun too. And then in that same vein, I would say so MVP, and then I put backyard baseball below that, and then the next one below that, another baseball game. And I think this is underrated, but the Sammy Sosa High Heat Baseball 2000. So I don't know if you guys played that one.
No. I mean,
But
I know
I've
it,
never
but
played that. Yeah.
So if
Yeah.
you can go get it. If you can find it. I think 01 is I've tried to get an emulator. I can't find 2000, but I find 01. 01's like the one that came out. It's like the slugfest version of King Group Baseball.
oh, okay.
So the 01 was cool too, but like you could go in and it was very much like OOTP where you could it had like text fields and you could like change what their projected stats were, which would then change their stats as a player. And you could just do it like game to game. So
That's awesome.
it's super
I love
customizable. So
the
it's so
OOTP
fun.
reference.
And you just used the arrows and you just pointed to, and it was zone hitting. So you just like swung up, swung down, whatever.
Yep.
And it was just Bartolo Colon was just nasty. So it was one of those games, and it was super customizable. So I could I always boosted for whatever reason. I played the Red Sox a lot, and I boosted Trot Nixon to be the best hitter for some reason because he was like their, solid player. And then I played in the A's, and I'd boost Kotze all the time because he was like the 6th hitter, right? So I don't know, for whatever reason, that's what I hit. So I was like the 6th hitter, like shortstop guy, but I was better at pitching. So I always make my version of me on the team, like the guy that he's not the star, but then he becomes a star. And then the other 2 games, World of Warcraft, thousands and thousands and thousands of hours in that game. And then I will say it's really close between Fortnite and Minecraft for me. I think Minecraft's an objectively better game long term because I'm an engineering brain. I think we've gotten that pretty clear. So making things and figuring out how it works is really interesting to me. But Fortnite, I can't discount the experiences and the fun I had playing with just socially with friends.
It's the community aspect,
it's
100%.
So all those memories are the best.
Yep.
Probably those are the best memories playing games. But in terms of games themselves, I'd say I put those other ones in.
We're going to bounce around between baseball and non-baseball stuff throughout the stuff. Just a fun combo. But back to baseball for a second. It's crazy to think you were actually the first multi-year deal that the Mets issued under Steve Cohen when you signed with the team. What was your perception of the Mets coming into the organization as obviously someone who was around in the league but didn't play for them? So your perception coming in, and then what was your experience like over the 2-year stretch with the Mets?
Yeah, it was interesting. On the outside looking in, we trust me, around the league, the all the memes and the internet presence of the fans and stuff is well known. The LOL Mets, the June swoon, you just can't avoid it because it's a very big market and there's just lots of people who make content around the team. So we know about that stuff. It's even after I left and I went to Oakland, a lot of guys were like, haha, LOL. Is it really like that? I'm like, no, it's not really, and it's kind of overblown. But it's this right here, man. The fact that you think that makes me crazy. So outside looking in, I knew that was a part of it, and then you just know that it's New York. It's just New York. Just watch a Jets game and then go on Twitter after. It's New York. So there's going to be a lot of that. And then getting there, it was pretty much par for the course. But the energy of the fans, the way they love their team is their top 3. They're them, Philly, and I'd say either Boston or New York or Boston and the Yankees are in there too. Probably 3A and 3B in terms of just how much you love your team and how willing you are to be loud, and when you need people to be loud, there's just there's just nothing like it. So and I knew that was going to be a part of it. So there was a lot of excitement. I've always thought of myself as someone who can go take the noise in and and turn it into something that produces. I love that. That's what I loved about baseball growing up. That's what I loved watching closers and relievers run onto the field to their songs and just like the energy that for like the like the kind of the WWE effect. Like I loved that. So and I'm like, what? No better place. No better place. And then so like every time Sugar gets called in the game and it's Timmy Trumpet, I come out even if I didn't pitch, because usually I would pitch before him. But like if I didn't pitch before him and I wasn't pitching at the time, I would come out so I could experience it with the fans because that's my favorite thing in the whole world. But getting there, it was more than you can't possibly know until you're on the team and people are counting on you. There's that, and then there's some of the stories about how unique it is to handle in the clubhouse media, print media, was not embellished at all. That was, if anything, they were downplayed from other players. They were just like, you're gonna identify pockets of people in that room that are going to say something in a certain way, and other pockets that are going to say it in other ways, and you're going to develop trust, and you're going to develop not trust with others, and that's just the way it is. And it's the same in the Yankees clubhouse. It's the same in Boston. It's the same in these other places too. There's just the way that media works these days, and you guys are intimate with it, and so am I. Is you're competing for attention. Like the money is attention. Like our human beings' attention is the fuel that fuels these things now. And so sometimes that attention is more important than what actually happened, or if it's a big deal or not. And I understand that, but as a player, I still hate it. Or hated it. So it's just you learn to navigate it. But yeah, there's some frustration that you learn to deal with at the beginning. And so I maybe underestimated what I was getting into there, but I think everyone does. But it was an adjustment that could be made. I knew how to do it, and it's just not a hard place to buy into, man. It's really, really not. I love everyone who's part of the organization. I think that Steve Cohen is owning a team. Like he's setting an example that because he's like, I want to win because I like the team, and it's a challenge for me, and I identify with a lot of that stuff. So he's like, it's just the way he is, and he's very competitive himself. And so you want that guy at the helm. You want that guy, and to be his first signing, I'm pulling for a Mets World Series soon so that we can look back and be like, well, they signed Trevor May that first time, and a few years later they won this World Series, so it worked out. Like instead of being like, we haven't gotten one and they signed Trevor May first. Like that's kind of what the narrative is now. I get it. I'm a reliever, whatever. But yeah, I'm with you guys. Let's go.
Your name just appears on a graphic during a broadcast of like Steve Cohen timeline of moves, and you are right at the top there. And it goes
World Series soon, so I'm close.
Yes,
so I'm that first domino that fell, as opposed to the other way.
Well, a huge part of his mindset, that competitive, nature of his, was led to 2022, which us as Mets fans, that regular season was as impressive as we've seen in our lifetime. And obviously you were a part of that team, dealt with some injury that year and then came back. And then, of course, it felt like it just ended in a blink of an eye. Were you ever able to process such a wild season where the team wins over 100 games? You were dealing with some adversity of yourself over summer. And then with the playoff format and a few bad breaks along the way, it was just all over. Were you ever able to process that season of how things ended in New York?
Yeah, it was after, though. It was. I'm be honest. We didn't celebrate one time that whole year. So like as a team, we never celebrated our success that year, which I think is unfortunate. There was a little bit. It's just all timing, and the timing was so bad for everything because it didn't get really locked in until the last day of the season or the last couple days of the season, and then we had to play like the first day back, and then not only that we clinched, but like we led the division all year and they didn't win the division. So like now you're celebrating like losing the division, like all the again, there's a lot of PR involved, and there's a lot of like egg on the face, like situations where we wouldn't have been able to avoid. So we kind of had to do it under the radar just amongst ourselves. And we tried, but there's just something about like letting loose and just like taking it in that room that's covered in plastic where you just can just relax, truly relax, where there's nothing to be done after that for a little bit. You can enjoy it just for an evening. And I think there is a lot of power to that. But the timing of that stuff is also really important. So, then we went into the playoffs, then we just got eliminated in the first round, and we didn't really get to like look at each other and be like, hey man, you had a like I never got to be like, Pete, I don't think we've talked about how insane your year is. You broke like every record. And it sucks that we weren't able to like toast you or anything during our celebration because you deserve it. But he's also not a guy who needs that. So there's a good group of guys that didn't feel bad about it. I just wish we could have celebrated more. But yeah, it happened so quick. The playoffs now are just crazy. And I mean, I know that I win in both games where we lost, but I was happy that I at least got to get in, get on the mound and throw off on Citi Field mound, which I love pitching there. And I think that it's my best. I pitched the best in Citi Field, better than Citi Field than anywhere I've ever pitched. So I tried to kind of take that, and it was easy. Like I said, easy to buy in when you have like Max Scherzer was leading the pitching staff in terms of just being a vocal leader, and then Lindor being a vocal leader for the position players. We had everything we needed. It was execution at that point. It just didn't work out.
You briefly touched on this, but we're an Edwin Diaz podcast. I remember having Twitter wars with people after his first year where he struggled in New York, and everyone wanted him gone. And I obviously was on the other side of that. And you mentioned about Narco and Timmy Trumpets and everything with the entrance. You said WWE style, which I think is very fitting. Do you think that's the start of something for relievers going forward? I know Duran in Minnesota has kind of his own thing. Do you think Timmy Trumpets and Edwin Diaz is kind of starting a trend that back in the day you had to enter Sandman with Mariano and stuff, but now it's like WWE style entrances? And did Narco do anything for you guys confidence wise on the field when that hit?
And not only that, the other team heard it. And even like you just go look at him against the Braves at home ever. Like that was the best hitting team then in 22 and probably in 21. They were towards the end, they were the best offensive team, and they were just dead when he came. Like they were just done. They not at home. They were just done. They couldn't touch him. And there's a confidence with that where like it just feels really like everyone's there cheering you on, and there's this like once that song comes on, it's a cue that this is going to go really poorly for you. So there's something going on there. I've always loved that. I came out to welcome home there from Coheed, and we know Josh Eppert is a huge Mets fan as well, which I didn't know at the time. I was going to do the song either way, but that's just icing on the top of the cake. So that energy is always what I'm looking for relievers. I pick guys' songs quite often actually because they're like, "Hey, what do you got for?" I'm like, "I think this matches your personality." I had to change it. For example, I changed it in Oakland because Oakland is bass. I don't know if you guys have seen a game there, but like it is like you're in, it's like you're at a concert. It is like they can rattle the teeth out of your head there. And so I was like, I need something with a bass kick or something. So I chose Rumble by Skrillex and Float and it just was awesome. And it just was perfect. And then I got my video up there, and I was like, yes, like this is what I wanted this for so long. I never had a video. Unfortunately, they didn't have the LED lights there. I mean, because we all know what the Coliseum is. So we couldn't like turn them off and blink them around or whatever. But one guy that I played against that did it better than anybody is Melanson. He comes out to Thunderstruck, but he always waited behind the door on purpose until the first Thunderstruck. So it'd be like Thunder, and then he'd come out, and he like planned it. And I've heard, I don't know this for certain because I haven't spoken to him, but I've heard he is a WWE fan. So I think this was all. I think he's the same with like he gets it. He gets it, and he really wanted that to go going. And I loved it. We were playing the Padres in 21. I was standing there, we could see him, and I'm like, oh my god, he's waiting. This is awesome. I didn't know he did it, and then he was like, and go like Nick Cage and Gone in 60 Seconds, like. And we go. So that stuff is my favorite. I hope more people do it. I'm noticing that now eighth inning guys are starting to get it. Maybe most Bomberos in Seattle. So which is firemen for everybody.
Do you think it has to be a closer? Do you think it has to be a closer, or should everyone do it?
No. Yeah. It's your group. If you go to your guys, like I think at like the 15 Kansas City Royals, O'Shaver should have started, and they should have had like a tandem thing that O'Shaver comes out, and then Carrera comes out, and then Wade Davis came out, and then Holland came out. Like they should have had something similar, but like different pieces of a puzzle. Like we're about to do the whole thing on you. And the Mariners kind of do that with the fireman, which they use for the middle, and then the closer gets his own thing. Which Mariners do a great job of that program, getting everyone hyped up. They're good at it, and the Mets are getting pretty good at it too.
Trevor, you said that you are going to get to watch even more baseball now, and you're just a fan of the game, an analyst of the game. So, I mean, what do you think of the Mets currently right now? This was a weird year where they go into the year and they're all win now, and then by the trade deadline, they trade a lot of those win now pieces and get a lot of promising prospects back that Joe and I are really excited about. But then they hire David Stearns to lead this whole operation this offseason. So everything is so different right now. What is your current view of the franchise?
I think that a lot of those pieces you just mentioned, including Stearns, a lot of them are plug and play in a big way. I think that Stearns has a philosophy, a pretty clear philosophy that he has been really, really kind of got locked in Milwaukee, and you know it's a small market. It's not a huge place in terms of money wise, and they're not able to bring in huge free agents all the time, and they're always there. Now you can make the case that it's a weak division, whatever, but like they win. They're a solid team, and when they're bad, they're solid still. Maybe they don't make the playoffs, but they're close. They're around till the end. And there's something to that there's a philosophy that allows that to happen. I think he has a really good understanding of how to put together winning teams and use youth and get the most out of the guys that you have and go get guys that maybe are diamonds in the rough. He's one of those minds, and he's going to bring that to New York. And so there's that. And then you add in like the progress of Alvarez this year. I think that I know you guys are very well aware, and I know that Mets fans are very well aware of him, but I don't think the nation is aware enough that he was the second best defensive catcher in stealing strikes, and he hit 25 homers. Let me just put it this way: Francisco is extremely hardworking, and when you first see him, like he's got swag, and you can make some assumptions when you see a young guy with 20 years old who's just chained up, and like got all the swag on all the time. You see him in spring training, you're like, but. Let's see what the work ethic is like, because sometimes it's not there. And you got, when you're young guys, you got to figure out the work ethic. You want to know that first, and then you see him 5 minutes and you're like, oh yeah, this guy works just as harder than anybody. And to see where he came from, for when I rehabbed with him in Syracuse last year in July, or in May, July, to now, and the way he receives and the way he calls games, it's amazing. It's amazing he's come that far in 1 year. When you have Max Scherzer and Verlander, that'll do it. But when I heard that they were asking for him to catch them, that's not easy. Max is picky, and so that's a big deal. So I think he can be an anchor of that lineup and the pitching staff for a long time. That is a huge asset. And then you add in, Vientos got a lot more ABs this year. 80 got to play a lot more. You have just really good pieces that they're a couple steps away from becoming, your center of your stars of the future. And then you got your guys, you got your leaders locked in. Francisco's going to be a leader forever. Like until the day he's retired, he's going to lead, and he's going to provide that value. And he's one of the best I've ever played with at that. So the more young guys you add in, then you add Acuna's little brother, who's electric, surprise. And some of these it's going to be interesting to see how like Buto, how he progresses, because he threw really well.
He did.
There's arms there that are still controllable. You got Edwin in the back of the bullpen holding it down. Like you got the big important roles still locked in, and then there's still space for the young guys to kind of morph into those that star core too. So I think it's a good situation, because and then the aging part of it isn't really a factor as much. Like the two big guys who were aging, they're not there, so you don't have to worry about that. So there's a lot to be excited for, obviously, but at the end of the day, you got to wait and see how execution happens. But I'd be really, really, really. I know you're excited about Francisco, but I'd be even more excited for you. Like he's really good.
I have Alvarez stories because my main thing here at SNY is prospects. That's really what I mainly do. So get ready for Drew Gilbert too if you want to talk about electric. That's another one. But let's talk about the pitch clock for a bit full disclosure, we put ourselves on the clock to talk about different topics earlier in the season to just play to the new rules. And maybe it's good for podcasting, but I have a tendency to talk a lot. So I failed miserably at this. So we're going to put you on the clock. You have 60 seconds. Give us your thoughts on the pitch clock.
At first, they're going now. Okay. At first, I hated it. It made it very, very hard to go through the amount of information that I try to have on each hitter. But then I found a way to simplify those things, and I got on the same page with my catcher, Shea Langoliers, who is up there with Francisco and how excited he is about learning and getting better. So I've come around a lot on it, but yes, pitching is different. I do miss some of the nuance. I do wish there was an ability to like step off if I mess up or something, or have something in my head and then I want to change it with nobody on base. That would be nice. Just one every once in a while. But other than that, I'm not mad about the length of games. I'm not mad about the pace of play. I think those things help the game and were a resounding success for sure.
10 seconds to spare. You've
did way better than I would have.
Yeah, 10 seconds to spare. So we'll throw it this way, Trevor. If you could institute one new rule change in all of baseball, anything you want, what would it be?
Oh God, what rule change would I do? I would ban stealing. No, honestly, yeah, I would go with like maybe adjusting a slightly a rule. So maybe adding just slight ability for some card for a pitcher to play. Just stop for a second. Just give me something that is either like a step off that doesn't count towards my total, or just one with nobody on base, or I even kick this one around. Maybe just go, you guys, you can get one step off per inning starting in the 7th. Just give it to the big to the guys, to the leverage guys, right? And then you just get to use it, and it's something that kicks in later in the game, or only if it's like within a 3-run game going into the 7th, like so that most of the time it's not going to be in play and it's not going to affect it. But if it is, it provides a little bit more of an opportunity for a better product. Just like there's no reason we can't do those things. So maybe just slight adjustments in that, or just being open to those things, because I think that would go a long way for young guys actually learning, as opposed to just letting things snowball on them and then huge blow up innings, which we saw all of April and all of May. It was astronomical, the number of just crazy crooked number innings.
There will forever and always be a debate on analytics versus quote unquote old school, whatever you want to say that means. And obviously I know you're very analytically driven. You've talked about it with us so far today. And, I really enjoyed your thread about facing Bryce Harper and talking about expected WOBA on different things. So where do you stand on the mix of analytics versus whatever you want to consider old school? I think that's a little subjective what old school exactly means. And is there a good balance that many are just finding it hard to achieve and figure out?
Yes. And I think that most of that debate is in a media context. So like, we talk a lot about people just railing against the use of the word sweeper. I agree. Like, it's not really that valuable it's just an interesting tidbit in the media standpoint, but we don't need to get them that correct. We don't need to call every slider that's a sweeper perfectly. Actually, that's not, like, it doesn't matter. It only matters for us as players when we're designing something. So if I say, oh, that's a sweeper versus a slider, the guy I'm talking to knows what the difference in movements are. So like, he can think, oh, you're thinking something differently for these, which is what we're doing. So, and then it's designable. So like, when it comes down to it, I don't think they're separate in the way people think they are separate, and that drives me crazy. So here's my definition of old school: eyes, and what are you seeing and what are you feeling? So this is how we used to make every decision. A pitching coach would watch you, he would see things, and then you would feel things, and then you try to come up with what's going on, right? Now we have ways to see things more clearly, and then attach what we're seeing to a feeling. So we're just creatures of habit, where we have cues. We're like, if the ball is going over there all the time, this is probably what's going on with me. And also, if it's going over there all the time, I know how it's moving also. So like that's another layer that's been added on by analytics. So I just have more context for why things are happening and what I'm seeing, what the hitter might see, and what's an outcome that might happen because of the information I know about it. So now I can make decisions with more information. It's just more information. It's not different information. It's more information. And there are times where I'll look at a guy and it'll be a young guy. And there won't be a lot of information on him. And I'll be like, he really struggles with sliders pretty much in every count. So I'm like, okay, I'm going to throw my slider where I can throw it the most. That's it. So like, it's more of a stick your strengths guy. So I'll just look down and be like, stick your strengths. Like if you throw your things where they're supposed to go, you got them. But then there's guys like Bryce Harper where you got to be like, in this count,
Very
that's
careful.
dangerous. In that count,
Yeah.
that's dangerous. But vast majority of the guys are count selecting. Like they hit sliders better with 2 strikes and they don't hit them at all when they're in 1 strike. Most teams have those kind of guys because that's how they are learning to hit. Like let's take advantage of these situations. So through analytics, I found that, like that idea, like this guy handles this pitch in this count better. And what does that tell me about his intent? So I'm learning about the hitter's intent that I can remember. I know what this guy's intending to do. So then I can then remember that much easier when I'm out there. That's how I use the analytics. And I think that's the best way. I think analytics are very, very, very good over 162 games. I think that you can make equation type, like you can be like, you're going to throw 5 innings and then you're done. We might be able to get a win. That's why the Dodgers win 100 games every year because they do that better. Then we get to the playoffs. You can't do that in the playoffs. You got to look in the guy's eyes. Is this guy ready to rise to the occasion? Because I think that is more valuable in a sample size of 1. That is more valuable than all of the predictive stats before because the atmosphere is just different. The adrenaline is different and the pressure is different. And you didn't have those things before. So everything isn't predictable. It only is predictable to a certain point. And people do things they've never done before all the time. And you got to allow them to do that. That needs to still be part of the game. So that's where the crossover happens. I think that I'm not saying throw out analytics because you should pick relievers based on matchups and things. And this guy still probably is your best chance for that other guy, but it's going to come down to execution. And if he's out there scared, doesn't matter what his stuff is, and he's not going to execute, and it doesn't matter now. So like you still have to look the eyes and be like, are you ready to do the thing that we think you can do? Not just you're going to do it because we're human beings. Like that's just not how it works. So that's how I try to think about it. I just attach analytics to cues, and then I can then go back and check them. Brent Worker was talking about that too. Like I want to make sure I'm looking at my launch angles and my chase rates and like what pitch am I constantly chasing? Why am I chasing that so much? Numbers can tell you those things, so you have an idea of what might be happening that you're not really doing in real life because there's stakes. There's stakes when you're hitting, so you're not thinking about it. You can think about it after. You can add a number. Maybe that's a little more confidence to make a change. So that's how I've used it. That's how he uses it. I think that's a nice sweet spot. I think the best teams do that way.
It's a perfect transition from a great breakdown on analytics, an in-depth breakdown on analytics, to me asking you before you go to play word association. I'm literally just going to throw a topic at you. You say whatever comes top of mind. The last stuff here, Trevor. All right, starting with Mets fans.
Loud.
Umpires.
Doing their best.
Sticky stuff.
Bad.
The Super Mario Brothers movie.
Haven't seen it yet.
The Yankees.
It wasn't bad. It wasn't bad.
Ooh, the Yankees. Boo.
The Phillies.
Thank
Gotta
you.
be careful on that.
Thank you again.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah, that's fair enough. Best teammate.
Ooh, best teammate. Tommy Hunter.
Your trip to 2022 spring training after the lockout ended.
That
works. Yeah. The last one. The current playoff format.
It'd be a little better.
You could go a couple words on that if you want, because I want to hear
A little better. The bye thing in baseball just isn't it.
Weird.
It's weird. I think it just takes away. It just cuts into that advantage that the team that just played 162 games won a division. Like you should have. If you're going to get an advantage, it should be a good advantage. But I think that it kind of evens out after all your hitters go cold, because just live BPs don't go so far, man. If there's no adrenaline, it's just not the same. And you just can't afford to go cold for 2 games. You can't. And that's happening a lot. It happened last year. It happened this year. It's just happening so much that there's something to it. But that said, don't just scrap the whole thing. It's
right.
Just
Tweaks.
And I don't even really know what to tweak. Maybe it's maybe it's a slight change in. I really don't know how you do it without adding 2 more teams, which we do not want. Like, we don't want 2 more. I understand that'd be fun, but like, man, teams winning 79 games and going to, like, no.
It's weird. It's really weird.
Teams, they push for it. They want that. I understand it, revenue, but the way teams will be put together at that point, players will just. Sorry, old guys, but if you're 30, you're not getting hired. It's gonna be youngins.
All right. Be sure to check out all of Trevor's content at I Am Trevor May on Twitter, his YouTube channel, Trevor May Baseball. I Am Trevor May on Twitch. You can listen to the awesome May Contain Action podcast. Trevor, I'm sure I'm missing something, whether it's Instagram, one of the many ventures you are invested in and actively working on. But we just want to say thank you, because this was an awesome conversation. You were super generous with your time today, and it was really exciting watching you pitch, especially for our Mets, but beyond that. But it'll be even cooler seeing what you do next.
Awesome. Hey, thank you so much. Very kind words. I really appreciate that. And anytime, guys, I love doing this stuff. I love coming on, and I love talking about the Mets. So I'm one of you now, fans. I'm cheering for you guys. There will be a soft spot, and you may just see me in the stands there at Citi Field, because I got that gold card now, and they gotta give me tickets. Though it is sold out a lot, so maybe I won't be able to get in. But hopefully I can see some of you around.
Great stuff from Trevor May. Really awesome having him on the podcast, not only to talk about his baseball career, but the many ventures he has ahead of him, and we're excited to keep up with that. You're listening to the Mets Pod, presented by Tri-State Cadillac. Subscribe to the Mets Pod at Apple Podcasts, Spotify, SNY's YouTube channel, or wherever you get your shows. All right, Joe, one mailbag question today, because I'm going to warn our lovely listeners right now. There is going to be a lot of mailbag this winter. Keep sending them. I'm already bookmarking some from the previous weeks for the future, because they're long rankings and lists and a lot of quirky questions like that Joe and I have a lot of fun with. But today, a simple one from longtime listener Steve Miller. Joe, what position or part of someone's game do you most enjoy evaluating as a prospect?
So I'm getting more fascinated with pitchers than I used to be. I used to just be like, yeah, pitchers are cool. You need pitchers. You want an ace or whatever.
Throw hard and locate.
Yeah. The more things we're learning about pitching, and just hearing Trevor before talk about the difference in sweepers and spin rates and spin efficiency, like, I'm learning more and more year in and year out about pitching. And to me, that's very interesting, because I'm very inquisitive mind here. So I like to learn more and more. So pitching, I think, definitely stands out as something. But generally speaking, I look for the unteachable traits. Like, that's to me the best way. Like, I cannot teach you to throw 98 miles an hour. I maybe can get you from 91 to 93, but generally speaking, you either can throw 98 or you can't throw 98. Plate discipline, you either have an eye at the plate or you don't. You could all of these come with, you can make small improvements, but if you have a bad eye at the plate, if you're Javier Baez, you're not going to get on base at a 370 clip. So I like that unteachable trait. And power, home run power. I mean, that's where the game is. Look how the Phillies have taken over these playoffs. Obviously, as we record here on Tuesday, Game 7 is tonight, so we'll see what happens there. But home runs in the playoffs win. So you're looking for that power. You could get someone a little stronger, but it's hard to make someone a home run hitter that's not a home run hitter. So when I'm evaluating prospects, and I'll be doing that for the draft, we have the draft lottery coming up here at the beginning of December, and fingers crossed that we get the number 1 pick in the lottery for the Mets, and I could start scouting Chase Burns right now, the pitcher from Wake Forest, who threw the other day, 97 to 100, slider around 90 miles an hour, just potential 1.1 candidate. But when I evaluate prospects, main thing is, what are the unteachable traits, and you kind of build a player around there. I'm a sucker for plate discipline, generally speaking, whether that's not just drawing walks per se, that's pitch selection, knowing when to attack. Like that's all a part of plate discipline in my eyes.
Yeah, and another thing to add on here, Joe, is just, instincts combined with athleticism. And I think we're seeing that with Acuna in the system, is that it's a little bit of the rules and some of the changes to just how much steals impact the game, or taking that extra base impacts the game, and having athleticism in the lineup. And it's hard to just field a lineup that's full of guys that can run and hit for power. It's what makes so many players unique. The Mets have one.
Look at Arizona.
Look at Arizona. Arizona is a very athletic team. They are a very athletic team. And here's another. I mean, look at the Mets with Francisco Lindor. They have a true 30-30 presence. But can you sprinkle some of the other spots in the lineup with athleticism? Because, Nimmo's a great leadoff man, but we've seen Nimmo is capped in terms of how much he can affect the base paths, because he's not a guy that steals bases. So that's a really interesting part that I'm excited to evaluate in the Mets system, as they got a lot more athletic at the trade deadline. They've got a lot more athletic in the draft when you look at somebody like Jet Williams as well. This is the Mets Pod presented by Tri-State Cadillac. Elevate your style in a Cadillac. Go from bold to bolder in an SUV, from inspiring to awe-inspiring in a sedan. Visit your Tri-State Cadillac dealer today. Remember to subscribe to the show at Apple Podcasts, Spotify, SNY's YouTube channel, or wherever you get your podcasts. Hey, thank you to Trevor May for a very special interview on today's episode. Joe and I will be back next week. Thank you so much, everyone.